So shall I start from the beginning?
Thank you so much. Sorry. Third world country here.
So could you repeat?
Could you start the beginning would be great. Thank you.
Well, hello, Mr. President. I'm a representative of the Ministry of the Natural Resources and Environment. And to start with, I would like to emphasize that global climate change isn't a slow-warming process. It is, first of all, imbalance, a severe shake of the whole climate system, along with a relatively slow rise in average temperature. The imbalance of climate system manifests itself in the increasing number and force of all dangerous hydrometeorological events, that is, floods and droughts, heat waves and rapid frosts, tornadoes and heavy snowfalls, etc. According to the observation results, the DHE number in Russia annually increases by 6.3%. There were particularly many DHE in 2006 and 2007, making 387 and 436 cases respectively. According to the World Bank, the annual damage caused by various hydrometeorological events in Russia, including climate change consequences, has already been assessed at 30 to 60 billion rubles. In Russia, like in many other countries, rain floods and floods have become more often. They appear to be a real disaster causing heavy consequences. They make more than 50% of all economic losses caused by DHE. Lengsk flood in Yakutia in 2001 became a national tragedy. The town was almost totally washed away from the face of the earth. The government had to urgently build new houses for the flood survivors and restore the city infrastructure. Many cities and regions of Russia are particularly flooded once within 8 to 12 years. Barnaul, Biysk, Orsk, Ufa, and some other cities are partially flooded as often as once within 2 to 3 years. So, this situation concerning floods and other natural disasters needs to be solved in the nearest future. And I feel the government should take immediate measures for this. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm a representative of the Arctic region. It is the Arctic region where the climate is changing most strikingly, about 1.5 to 2 times faster than on the Earth in general. Over the last several years, the temperature in different parts of the Arctic region has risen by 0.7 to 4 degrees Celsius. Over the last 30 years, the snow period has reduced by 2 weeks of average. The shrinking of the total ice area in 2005 from 7.5 million square kilometer to 5.5 million square kilometer was quite impressive. The less severe climate might seem to please the local people, but it is not true. Polar bears, masters of this era, are also suffering from the climate change. In spring, they used to hunt seals on the ice. However, over the last years, the traditional seal hunting has become rather problematic in Chukotka. Ice starts melting pretty early. As a result, bears are separated from their traditional hunting area by wide sections of water. They have to leave their natural habitat. Searching for food, they are coming to the settlements. In Van Hammer settlements, the local people urgently had to create the special bear patrol team. Besides, bears now appear in the areas they have never been before, in the mouth of the Kolyma River. Migration of polar bears and their adaptation to new areas often provoke conflicts of bears with people. Other habitats of polar bears are also changing. Within the nearest states, the number of these animals may decrease by more than 1/3. Global warming is making transportation in the Arctic region more problematic. All over the north, the time of using winter roads has reduced. Roads are now freezing later and melting earlier than before. This fact is making work in tundra much more difficult. Besides, it is very harmful for the nature. Uh, Reindeer breeders are complaining that November thaws, especially when it rains, are doing great harm to the reindeer's breeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, I also represent the Arctic Region Administration. Permafrost covers about 25% of the Earth's surface of the North Hemisphere and more than 60% of Russia's territory. Since the 1970s, scientists have been observing the rise in temperature and the increase of the depth of the summer thawing of permafrost. In several regions, the permafrost area has been shrinking. These changes are seriously impacting natural ecosystems, economy of the polar regions, and people's lives. Thawing permafrost is threatening constructions, roads, oil and gas pipelines, reservoirs, facilities, oil and gas industries, buildings, etc., located in the regions of the far north. Over the last 30 years in Yakutsk, more than 300 buildings were seriously damaged due to the ground slump. If the current trends remain the same, the dangerous geoecological consequences of permafrost degradation will be unavoidable. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. President, I'm a representative of Ministry of Economy. For a small number of countries, including Russia, in the event of global warming by 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a little positive effect may be observed. However, it may become negative if the global temperatures rise in 2 to 3 Celsius. Russia's southern regions, as well as the neighboring countries, may be damaged even now. However, the damage is mainly caused not by average temperatures so far, but by the increase in the number and force of dangerous hydrometeorological events. For example, hurricanes, floods, heat waves, etc. According to the independent assessment of the experts from different branches of economy, that are power engineering, gas industries, communications, agriculture, water resources and forestry, river transportation, civil aviation, municipal commerce services, the average annual direct economic damage done to those fields of economy was assessed at 58 billion rubles. Most experts consider reduction of heating season as immediate positive climate change effect for Russian economy. This will allow to reduce fuel expenditure and consequently the demand for fuel, which could be considered to be the additional positive effect. By 2025, the duration of heating season will decrease by 5% for most Russia's territories. In southern regions of Europe and Russia and far east north to western regions, the heating season will be reduced by 10%, thus allowing to save from 10 to 20% of fuel. However, it seems impossible to fully use this positive climate change effect due to increasingly unstable weather conditions during different time periods. Unfavorable events like unseasonable, abnormally warm and cold weather, frost, strong wind and snowfalls will happen more often both within the heating season and afterwards. Thus, additional energy and fuel resources may be needed. Climate change will impact the timber industry complex, and this change may also increase the number of forest fires. Thank you for your listening.
Nice to meet you, Mr. President. I'm a representative of the Ministry of Agriculture. At the moment, the global warming impact on Russian agriculture is currently assessed as favorable. It has already considerably reduced the number of winters with low air temperatures, threatening winter crops. In many regions the vegetation period has increased by 5 or 10 days. Analyzing the climate change impacts on the agriculture, one should clearly distinguish what is happening now from what will happen in the future. This distinction is crucially important. For most Russian territory, the general trend is expected to change from slightly positive to substantially negative. Drought, deserting, soil erosion and salting, frost and those may totally diminish positive effect. However, none of the models can currently predict the real course of events. Thus, there remains only one thing to do. That is to organize special monitoring of any rapid changes in ecosystems. The general climate change trend for the country may be characterized as a dry warming. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm a representative of the Ministry of Healthcare. As it has already been mentioned, the strongest climate change consequences will be in the Arctic region due to the danger of thawing permafrost and permafrost degradation. This phenomena can be epidemiologically dangerous as there may be a risk of the drain system deformation. Global warming has already been negatively affecting the health and traditional environment of the northern indigenous population. Due to climate change, there emerged problems of food preservation in the region. As a result, the number of intestinal diseases has increased. The number of other diseases may also increase. There may be more hunt accidents as ice layer is getting thinner. There is no such research on Russia yet. However, the survey of Chukotka population confirmed that the local people notice negative consequences of climate warming. In the Arctic region, social impacts of climate change will be felt most by indigenous minorities. Their social system has traditionally been oriented towards both social networking and maintaining people's balance with the extremely vulnerable environment. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I am representative of the Ministry of Healthcare. In the southern regions of European Russia and the Urals, the summer air temperature may substantially rise and the precipitation amount decrease, thus causing more drought periods in those regions. The deserting process may increase the sickness and death rates due to the growing amount of dust transferred from desert and semi-desert territories. Under certain conditions, the pollutants, including aerosols, carbon monoxide, ozone, dusty dust, fungal spores, bacteria, and pesticides, may be spread to the extremely long distances. On the days after dust storms, and death rate is increasing, which is especially true for heart and respiratory diseases. Other social impacts include lack of water for drinking and sanitary purposes, salting soils, shortage of local foodstuff, and as a result, scarcity of proteins, microelements, and other important nutrition components. Even now, in some regions of Kalmykia, the daily average consumption of water makes only 7-10 liters per person. During drought periods, the number of contagious diseases may increase. Drought is also affecting some mosquito-transmitted diseases. The activeness of mosquitoes is getting down, and the number of people lacking immunity against these diseases increases. When the drought period is over, the share of people prone to those diseases is growing along with the number of infected people. However, droughts may increase the total number of mosquitoes due to the decrease in the number of mosquito-eating animals. Besides, the short-term increase of the risk of contagious diseases may be caused by stagnation and contamination of drain canals and small rivers. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, I'm a representative of the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. So, social impacts of floods obviously include destruction of houses, technical facilities, industrial premises, and electric power networks, as well as higher risk of contagious diseases outburst. In Russia, floods, storms, typhoons, and hurricanes annually kill up to 1,000 people, while the total number of people with traumas and post-traumatic shocks has not been calculated yet. Both adults and children may suffer from lasting psychic disorders. Over the last year, the natural disasters have been felt most by the low social status population of Yakutia, Stavropol territory, Krasnodar territory, and Primorye territory. Besides floods can indirect consequences, the growing number of mosquitoes as a result of territories submerging, activation of ticks and other carriers of contagious diseases, along with the increasing contagious period, breakage of water pipes and drain systems. Connected to this, there may be higher risk of intestinal diseases in the flooded regions. Floods may also pollute the drinking water with industrial weed and pest killers, petrol, oil, etc., coming from broken industrial reservoirs. Over the 21st century, the expected climate change may increase the number of fires. In Russia, fires are mainly threatening those living in the southern regions of European Russia and woodlands of Siberia and Far East. Fires in Khabarovsk have seriously polluted the air. The health of the local people has been badly deteriorated. That's all. Thanks for your attention.
I would like to thank all the ministers for their reports on this subject. So, what can we do to overcome these problems? As a president, I can suggest some different things. For example, we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. To do that, we should identify the high-tech development of Russia's power engineering as a main target. Also, we can work out in detail a roadmap for Russia's energy strategy. We should do a decision on the development of a combination of economic measures for the period up to 2030, allowing to distinguish the growth of emissions from the economic development in general. Also, we should adopt a 25-year plan of introduction of fuel-saving standards for new cars. Thus, we should introduce the standards that will be adjusted to international norms within the nearest 5 years. We should lay down fines for the car producers for non-compliance with the standards to allocate all received funds for the development of innovative technology of hybrid vehicles. During the 5-year period, we should increase the utilization of accompanying gases to 95%. When making new license agreements, we should lay down that 95% of the gases should be utilized. So, as you can see, Russia is taking active measures to address global warming. Our country is now one of the world's leaders for the rate at which we are reducing our economy's energy consumption by 33.4% between 2000 and 2012. Through implementation of our energy efficiency and energy sector development program, we expect to be able to reduce the economy's energy intensity by a further 13.5% by 2020. From 1991 to 2012, not only did Russia have no increase in greenhouse gas emission, we were also able to substantially reduce it through economy modernization and introduction of environmentally friendly energy-saving technology. In the meantime, Russia's GDP has nearly doubled over the same period. Russia will continue to contribute to the global effort against global warming. By 2030, we plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions down to 70% of 1990's base levels. We will achieve this using measures that include breakthrough energy-saving solutions and new nanotechnology. Also, we should adapt for unavoidable changes. So there is a need for the development of national and regional adaptation plans and strategies that prioritize the needs of poor and vulnerable groups of the population. One may start with the regions where there is undisputable evidence of climate change negative impacts on the most vulnerable population and ecosystems. For South Russia and North Caucasus, it is necessary to prepare for unfavorable river runoffs and shortage of water, as well as for the negative impact on the country's main agricultural regions. The measures should include transition to the state-of-the-art irrigation system, construction of hydrotechnical facilities, introduction of drought-resistant crops, implementation of new construction works in full awareness of the flood likelihood, in some areas, construction of anti-flood defense facilities, planting of the first forest belts. For Central Russia, it is necessary to prepare for more intensive but rare participation regime, more frequent storms and hurricanes, recurrent heat waves, flooding of the lowland located in the historical centers of towns. It is necessary to introduce measures for the protection of coastal cities from more frequent and large-scale floods caused by storms and the rise of sea level. There is a need for the situation monitoring and measures reducing the climate change impact on the quality of drinking water, atmospheric air, high temperatures impact on population's health in the country as a whole, as well as in the most troubled regions and the groups at high risk. The sites attracting groups most vulnerable to the impact of heat and public buildings must be equipped with air conditioning. There is a need for Russian National Action Plan for the reduction of the climate change negative impact on the population's health, which will address, among the other things, the problem of the spread, contagious, and caused by parasitic disease. This problem must be given to the top priority. All the necessary vaccines must be obtained. All medical personnel must be trained beforehand. Priority should be given to the protection of poor and vulnerable groups of the population. Thank you all of our ministers for addressing the problem that we are having not only in Russia, but in the whole world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention, Mr. President.
Thank you. So now we're going to have the EPA Director, Ms. Brisa Rodriguez, share with you her speech. So here she is.
Good morning, Mr. President. I, Brisa Rodriguez, as EPA Director, recommend the following points to curtail global warming. Mr. President, it is clear that today the amount of damage caused by pollution has left us in a place of no return. Many will try to argue that global warming is not a real issue. Why? Because global warming and climate change has been something that has been continuously occurring throughout the years. Mr. President, climate change is real and it has to be fixed today. While we cannot stop it, we can curtail its negative effects, which is why we should take action and follow my 3-plan action points. That being said, I recommend the following plan of action. First, we start using a clean power plan. Second, we start negotiating with other countries to protect the oceans. And third, we have to be stricter on our federal laws and punishment for those who harm the environment. To the first point, we need to start using a clean power plan now. Power plant accounts for nearly 40% of U.S. carbon dioxide emission. That's more than every car, truck, and plane in the U.S. combined. With a stricter enforcement on the Clean Air Act, our carbon emissions would be reduced by 42% and achieve 30% renewable energy by 2030. The United States can affordably cut global warming emissions, chart a course toward a clean energy future, and deliver significant health and economic benefits to all Americans. Next, we need to negotiate with other countries to protect oceans. Land use is complicated, and we understand that. However, oceans are a whole different game. They can be protected by executive fiat, just like President Bush did in 2006 when he declared the world's largest marine monument northwest of Hawaii. Mr. President, you can do the same with other parts of the ocean and even negotiate with other countries to protect all oceans. Clean oceans mean a future for all of the people around the world, and remember that marine plants produce between 70 and 80% of the oxygen in the atmosphere. And if oceans are not safe, then the people are in danger as well, for we cannot live without oxygen. And finally, we need to be stricter on our federal laws and punishments for those who harm our environment. Your Honor, Mr. President, we should enforce our federal laws and punishment for those who harm our environment. Grant no favors to big companies. Money is not worth the cost of innocent lives. For these reasons, Mr. President, I ask that you choose and take my plan of action. Thank you.
Okay, just a moment, I'll get the other ones.
Mr. President, I, Madison, Adelstein, UN Ambassador, propose a policy idea to decrease the threat of global climate change. Climate change is a global issue that does not respect our national borders. Politically striking where it affects people from every region and every region around the world. It's an issue that requires solutions that need to be coordinated at the international level, meaning adding on to the measures of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is an agreement within the United Nations that deals with the regulation and emission of greenhouse gases. Many developing nations are opposed to the idea of the Paris Agreement because it seems unfair. However, it is more unfair to enforce our rules onto not only people of our own nation, but of people of nations that aren't even our own. If anything, the Paris Agreement is the most fair for not only the citizens of the world takes care of now, but for the generations to come. It is extremely urgent that we take charge of climate change now. People claim that global climate change should not be taken seriously because the global climate has always fluctuated. They don't seem to realize that the world has never changed climate as rapidly as it is now. For instance, the Pacific island nation of Kiribati has declared that the rapid increase in water temperatures over the past 6 years have left their land uninhabitable. Taking charge and fighting against global climate change now makes no sense in regards to economics and wealth. The longer it takes for us to take action, the more we pay. We have to pay to our people's health, we have to pay to clean our water and our air. We have to pay to rebuild the areas that can no longer withstand life due to our new poisonous nuclear smoke. There's no doubt that the Earth would be better off with this agreement being put into place globally. This agreement will help push humanity closer to reaching the goals of sustainability. The agreement will provide all the tools we need in order to not only address, but slow down enough to allow humanity to adapt to the damages already committed by climate change. It is for these reasons that we see no other reasonable answers to the tragedy of climate change than this.
Good morning, Mr. President. I, Adonis, Birch-Franklin, U.S. Secretary of Treasury, propose the following to change global warming. Climate change is a huge problem to today's society and needs to adjust immediately. It's something we can't just put a Band-Aid over. We need to change as soon as possible. First, we need to understand where the problems of global warming are coming from. For this, we need to call to action for all the countries to come together and meet in a public place, and we need to hear all the issues that are facing different nations around the world. Then we need to start right here in the U.S. and factor in our problems and address them immediately. To do this, we need to stop tax cut all non-carbon emitting companies, and this will promote big companies going greener faster, and this is ultimately better for the environment. Then we're going to cut all red tape off of everyday people putting clean energy into their homes. This includes solar, wind turbines, anything you can find, you can put in your homes without permits or anything like that. And then lastly, putting programs in school to teach kids about clean energy. This will ultimately provide a ripple effect for generations to come after us, because the kids are the future, and time is not to change globally. Thank you.
Mr. President, I, Estefania, the National Security Advisor, propose the following to solve this deadly global climate change that we are facing. Now, climate change will undermine efforts to make homes and livelihoods through increasing storms, droughts, diseases, and other stressors. Not only will this delay and prevent development, it will also increase national and regional instability and intensify income disparities between rich and poor. This in turn will lead to military confrontations or distribution on the world's wealth, which will be terrorism and transnational crime. These are crimes that have potential effect across national borders and crimes that are inside the states, in which fundamental values of the international community. This does not sound like a world I would like to live in, and live in either with you. Mr. President, I hope you take into consideration my proposition and that you will see that global warming is indeed real and not a myth.
Mr. President, I, Estefania Cortes, the Chief of Staff, propose the following to change global climate change, but first I will state some of the facts. First, the CO2 content of the atmosphere is rising, and due to its rise in the atmosphere, it is presently largely paralleled by the increase in fossil fuel combustion. Combustion of fossil fuels results in emission of CO2, so it is inevitably feasible to link the two increases. The expected increase in the energy of the lower troposphere may cause long-term changes in the climate and thermosphere, which could be characterized by increasing frequency and or magnitude of extreme weather events, an increase in sea temperatures, a reduction in ice cover, and many other changes. The greatest threat that sea levels may rise and flood large areas that are densely inhabited. So what's the single biggest way to make an impact on global climate change? We could talk to our friends and family, make sure representatives are making good decisions. And by voicing our concerns via social media, and better yet, directly to our elected officials, we send a message that we care about the world. We could also encourage Congress to enact new laws that let permanent emissions to require polluters to pay for the emissions they produce. That way, we can help protect public lands and stop offshore drilling. We can also choose a utility company that generates at least half its power from wind or solar, has been certified by Green E-Energy, an organization that bets renewable energy options. But if that isn't possible, many electric utilities now list other ways to support renewable resources on their monthly sales website. And among these, building, heating, and cooling are among the biggest uses of energy.
Mr. President, I advocate the defense of Secretary of State proposed the following points that advise change or dismiss global climate change. Global warming is having significant and harmful effects on our communities, our health, and our climate. Sea level rise is accelerating, the number of large wildfires is growing, aging humans are becoming more common, extreme storm events are increasing in many areas, more severe droughts are occurring in others. Rising sea level, if current trends continue, it could become more difficult to grow and afford affordable food for a rising global population. Low-lying areas, including many of the world's major cities, could be forced to build expensive residences and more extreme heat waves, could threaten the safety of many people and cause restrictions that cost a lot of money. Carbon dioxide is the most important of the six major greenhouse gases. These gases trap the sun's heat close to Earth, causing the planet to warm, which results in irrigation and human fires. We could stop the way we burn fossils to get power, heat, transport, and industry releasing greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. We could stop this by using renewable energy, for example, solar energy. Solar energy can not only make up our Earth, but it can anything we need. Climate change will determine efforts to bring already directly threatening people's homes and livelihoods through increased storms, drought, disease, and other stressors. Greenhouse gas emissions are expected to double over the next 15 years, causing global temperature to rise 3 C or more by the end of the century. Nuclear power inspires public fears about safety and nuclear massive safety. In conclusion, we should promote this course of action for the reasons to change how this would affect global change. The effects of climate change pose risks not only to the environment, but also to security and livelihood of people in the United States and around the world. Good morning, Mr. President. I am Chairman of the Council System, propose the following 5 points to help change global climate. Climate change is affecting all parts of the world, and although it is the biggest problem right now, we need to address it before it becomes a problem that is no longer necessary. The first suggestion is that the national security consequences of climate change should be fully integrated into the national security and national defense strategies. The intelligence community should incorporate climate consequences into its national intelligence system. Second, the U.S. should commit to a stronger national and international role to help stabilize climate change at levels that will avoid significant distribution of global security and stability. Third, the U.S. should commit a global partnership that helps less developed nations build the capacity and resilience to better manage climate impacts. Fourth, the Department of Defense should enhance its operational compatibility by accelerating the adoption of improved business processes and innovative technologies that result in improved U.S. combat power throughout energy efficiency. And my fifth and final suggestion is that the Department of Defense should conduct an assessment of the impact on the U.S. military installations worldwide of rising sea level, extreme weather events, and other projected climate change impacts over the next 30 to 40 years. In conclusion, we should promote this course of action to help our environment and our people.
Greetings, Americans and Russians. On this glorious morning, we have heard from multiple experts about the issue of climate change, its effects on the world, and different ways to combat it, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. I would like to first start our efforts to bring about a better world here in the US. By incentivizing green energy and technology, along with reduced carbon emissions, it's my hope that people will at least try to use cleaner energy and therefore help to create a safer environment. I would also like to give a bigger incentive to companies and manufacturers. If we can get products that we use in our day-to-day life to be made using green energy, that would be a great step to a greener world. A final goal of mine is to have a call for a global summit to cut CO2 emissions, a rehashing of the Paris Agreement. The last time that the people of the world, attempted it, there were a few disagreements that ultimately led to countries resigning or not even signing on to the agreement in the first place. This time, I hope that we will be able to understand the limits of each and every country, plan accordingly for each and every country, and have each and every country execute their part of the agreement as flawlessly as possible. If we can also find ways to promote the use of green technology in international trade, such as by tying the use of green technology to exported goods. That would also be a great step to the continuation of making the world a better place. And before I go, I would like to remind the people of the world that it is not just up to the many governments to fight climate change, but it is also up to you. It is up to the everyday person to make the greenest choices that they can to show their support for a healthier earth, to make the governments work for our air, to make the legislatures work for our water, and to start better business practices, to show a want for their children, their grandchildren, and later generations to grow up on a same, if not better planet than now. Thank you.
Now, Natalia, if we could get your president to stand there and our president, and then we'll ask questions from each side. You guys can start with the first question, and then we'll follow.
No question.
Should I ask the questions?
Yes, yeah. No, you can ask a question or any of your ministers, and then our ministers and our people ask questions, and so could Chance, okay? But yeah, we'll just go back and forth like that.
Okay. Мы можем... Okay. So, please, can you express your opinion on the most recent conferences regarding the problem of climate change and global warming? And do you think they are even that is possible to overcome this problem?
Can you repeat the second? Can you repeat the second part of your question?
Yeah. Do you think that these conferences are actually useful, and can we as a humanity overcome the problem of climate change and global warming?
Yeah. Well, to answer the first part of your question on progresses that we've made towards in technology, we've been great. We've had multiple hugely populated cities such as New York, Los Angeles, Austin. They've all been implementing greener technology and greener practices. So that's been great steps of progress. In response to your second question on do these conferences help with climate change, I believe that they do, because if we are able to talk about it and we are able to have a nice productive conversation in which everyone can learn something about it and learn different ways that they can help combat climate change, I feel like that we as humanity will be able to stand up against it if we have these nice civil talks.
Okay, thanks for your brilliant answer. Yeah. Thanks for your brilliant answer. Now I would like to ask our ministers to ask you some questions.
Okay. We're gonna go back. Can we ask you one question first, and we'll go to your ministers?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Going on to one of what your ministers was saying in their speech, if we are to implement, I think you were talking about air conditioning and how it was all going to go through green technology. Is it going to be effective throughout the long term or in the short term? Because I don't know, we've experienced 3 Category 5 hurricanes in just this hurricane season. So I would say that climate change should be more of a concern. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree with our concern regarding the climate change. And I think that the measures that we presented in our report will help in about a decade from this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Okay.
now
go ahead with your ministry questions, that's fine.
Yeah, so now I will pass the microphone to those ministers of ours, and they will ask you and also answer some questions. So I'll start with you.
If the Green parties take the lead in your country, would you accept it?
Can you repeat that?
If the Green parties take the lead in your country, would you accept it?
take the lead in your country? Would you accept?
Well, we would have to.
I mean, yeah.
We live in a
We
democracy.
live, we
have
live
to
in a
accept
democracy,
it,
so yes. I would also try my best to help them with climate change because even being the Green Party, we still need a conversation for everyone. So, yeah, we'd accept it.
Thank you for your answer. I have a question too. So, what can you say about the US exit from the Paris Agreement on climate change? In fact, the United States is the second largest source of carbon dioxide emissions in the world after China. Don't you think that this decision will significantly affect climate change worldwide?
I feel like it will, but I also feel like this decision wasn't made with the best thoughts in mind because, again, America, we have not had as good as a discussion on climate change as say England, as say Russia. We haven't had these nice productive talks on climate change where facts and information is being shared both on multiple levels. So I feel that yes, it was a bad decision, but also because we didn't have good communication about it. So we made it off of a horribly informed decision.
Thank you.
Hello again. I know that one of the most destructive disasters in your region is tornadoes. So I wonder if someone of you has seen it in real life, and at all. How often do they occur? What damage can they cause? And how do you save yourselves being in danger of a coming tornado?
Tornado.
Oh, it's a tornado. Okay. Have you seen a tornado in here? I've seen
Not
one.
really, no. We've had hurricanes, but they haven't hit us.
We've had hurricanes.
Yeah.
We've actually had a tornado.
No, didn't we have a tornado? Wasn't there a tornado warning?
That was a warning, but like,
Yeah.
But it was like
happened,
in Hudson.
like it didn't happen.
Yeah, we've had tornadoes destroy places very close to us. In fact, the little town of Jarrow was wiped out twice, I think, and one was about 10 years ago. But we are a lot closer to the coast, so much of our problems would be either hurricanes or tornadoes coming off of a hurricane, or the rain from the hurricane. In Houston, this last hurricane, Hurricane Harvey, they had over 50 inches of rain. So just the amount of rain and the sustained wind would be really damaged on that. Do you have an answer on the tornadoes?
On tornadoes? I haven't seen it in real life. I have seen a tornado. I know they do a lot of damage with debris. It's not the wind itself that does the most damage. It's what it picks up and then it like tosses.
Yeah, but hurricanes are.
But hurricanes are.
Yeah. The worst.
Yeah, if you go, to give you a little geographical information, if you go to Oklahoma here, the town of Moore has been destroyed at least 3 times in the last 15 years, I guess, through tornadoes. And they've had a lot of Category 5 tornadoes, which are very, very strong, over 175-mile-an-hour winds. And we had a Category 5 hurricane, which was around that when it landed. So if you could go to the next question, probably great. Sorry, I didn't mean.
Thank you.
Okay, hello again. I'm really interested. What climate anomalies are there in your region?
It's hot. It's dry. Wait, is it dry?
Well, it shifts
Yeah.
based on the year, which I guess you could say it's because of climate change.
If you go by the geographic, we're humid subtropical. Right here where we're heading towards the drier end of the humid subtropical. Our Fahrenheit readings could be 90 degrees anytime during the year, including January and December. We're going to have a high of 81 today. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but you guys can figure it out really quick. We'll only have snow maybe once every 4 or 5 years. More than likely, we will have storms of 20 inches of rain or more before we have snow. So very warm. Many years we had droughts. We had a drought for about 5 years. We have about 30 inches of rain, but it may all come in at 1 or 2 months. And then it may not rain for a long period of time. And normally our summers are very dry. You may have 50 to 60 days of 100+ temperature.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you for your answer.
Well, I'm very interested in your economy, and I wonder how do climate change affects on it?
We there's a lot of there's been a lot of talk about losing coal jobs, but again, if we switched over to green technology, more jobs would be made in green technology. So it'd be the same thing as the Industrial Revolution, where everyone's like, oh, all the farmers are going to lose their jobs, but then we got jobs in factories and stuff. So with climate change, it's slight push against creating more jobs to lose jobs, but all in all, either way, you're still going to have the same number of jobs and probably even more jobs if we went through with it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Hello. I want to ask, are there positive benefits from global warming? How do you think?
Positive benefits?
Okay.
No.
Okay, are there positive benefits from global warming?
Different crops. Well, yeah, different crops and stuff. But okay. Yeah. Yes, but the benefits don't outweigh the disadvantages and the costs. Sure, you could have different crops being planted in different places, but if it causes 100-degree summers in which no one can go outside to actually harvest the crops, what's the point?
Thanks a lot.
I actually have a question. So one of your ministers was talking about how mosquitoes and how there was some health issues. Should the health issues be more of a concern than actually curtailing global climate change? I heard that there was some benefit that diseases were starting to become less often occurring.
So in my concern, we should not place the climate change problem somewhere in the back. Actually, we should make it one of the main problems. But also, healthcare is something that is affecting everyone, and everyone has health. Everyone can lose health. So we also should prioritize health problems because they are very, very important worldwide. Yeah.
Will those health problems set back how effective your plan is? Because earlier, Mr. President, you were saying that it would affect in a 10-year basis, a decade, that we can expect changes in global climate. So if we have more concern with these medical issues, will that increase the amount of time before we see change?
Well, I don't think that this will increase the time of our renovation and our and our efforts to stop the climate changes and global warming, because those problems are closely tied together. So when we are trying to stop global warming, we also help the people that to be healthier.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
I have a question. Would climate change help Russia because it's such a cold place? Would it benefit Russia in any way to be a slight bit warmer?
Well, actually, not really, because well, in some ways it can benefit. As you said, we could plant some crops that won't normally grow here, but still the negative effects of the global warming and climate change will have a very destructive effect on our country as well.
Thank you.
What would you guys think about the relations between the United States and Russia? You think they should get better? You think they're going to get better?
So I can say that we all agree that the relationship between Russia and the USA will get better and better each year because it is our main concern to help the people of the world, and our concern is also to save the planet. So we will have to, not have to, we need to cooperate in different spheres, and as a whole we should be friends. And Russian people are actually open for the relations with all countries, all people, and every nation.
Oh, thank you.
So, do you have any other questions, or no?
In terms of money, do you believe that money will be a concern when negotiating with other countries? With the debt that has been accumulated, and whether countries actually want to jump in to provide money, energy, time, and technology to advance research in something that may not be well secured to be a fact. We don't know if green technology will work or not.
Can you repeat your question? I heard the second part, but it wasn't clear for me with the beginning.
Sorry, Mr. President. I was wondering if money would be a setback to get other countries involved in your plan to curtail climate change, considering that they have to put in time, energy, and technology, as well as research.
Well, in some way, yes, it will set us back, but still not only Russia, as a matter of fact, is participating in this kind of thing. So we can cooperate with other countries, and we can make some kind of a fund that will help other less industrial countries that are only developing now to help in this problem. And yeah, because only one country will not be able to solve this problem. So we will need total cooperation of the whole world.
I have the last question here. What do you learn from doing a process like this? What did you guys learn in Moscow? And then what did we learn here in Del Valle? We'll go with Moscow first. What did you learn by going through the process of doing this global climate change diplomacy meeting?
So the main thing that we learned that every country has its own problems, that the global warming is really affecting the whole planet, and we all should cooperate to solve this really big problem that can actually wipe out the humankind from Earth. And yeah, and this event helps us to understand the subject, and also we can spread the idea of this conference to other students, not even students, to our parents and different people that will get interested in this subject and also will be willing to help us.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
We learned that this is a really complicated issue with multiple different perspectives, from each country, and then each country has its own small different perspective on it too overall. And so we learned that yes, there are multiple perspectives, and everyone does have to agree and most people do have to agree in order for things to actually happen and for things to change. So that was a big thing that we learned.
And we thank you very much, guys. We look forward to the 28th, I guess it's a week from Tuesday, when we do the celebration foods and stuff. And hopefully, Natalia, you guys will be on there because Taiwan will be, they have a media and they have TV and they want to interview some people too. So Mary wants to make sure you have a lot of people there. So we'll see you at the end of the month, and thank you so much right now. Thank you, guys. Very good job.
Thank you for your attention. Bye. So
Bye.
It was great to meet you. And
Great to meet you too.